Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed that the heaviest things we carry are the thoughts we refuse to put down, not the past, not the future, not even our responsibilities? It's the endless, circling, looping noise in our minds, the conversations that never happened, the fears that never come true, the problems we invent before life even presents them. Today's message is titled, Empty Your Mind and Stop Overthinking. A crowded mind blocks clarity and wisdom because the mind, much like any container, has a limited capacity for attention, focus, and awareness. When it becomes filled with excessive thoughts, looping worries, and imagined scenarios, there is simply no room left for you to access the calmer, more intuitive part of yourself. Overthinking creates an internal turbulence that prevents insight from rising to the surface. It is like trying to see your reflection in a cup of water that is constantly stirred. The movement distorts the image. In the same way, mental clutter distorts your ability to perceive situations clearly or make grounded decisions. When your mind is overloaded, even simple choices feel complicated. You start analyzing possibilities that don't matter, creating problems that don't exist, and projecting fears that are unlikely to happen. This constant mental activity drains your energy, making you feel tired not because you've done too much, but because you've thought too much. The mind is not meant to run endlessly. It needs space, inner quiet, so it can restore itself and give you insight rather than confusion. Clarity comes from stillness. When the mind is calm, ideas flow naturally. You see things as they are, not as your fears or assumptions distort them to be. Wisdom, intuition, and creativity arise from the quiet corners of your consciousness, places you can't access when your mind is filled with noise. Many people try to think their way to solutions, believing that more mental effort will lead to breakthroughs, but true insight often appears when the mind relaxes. Some of the greatest realizations in life come not during intense analysis, but during simple moments, while showering, walking, breathing, or sitting in silence, because the mind finally releases its grip and allows new understanding to enter. A crowded mind also blocks emotional clarity. When thoughts pile on top of each other, they blur your awareness of how you truly feel. You might mistake anxiety for intuition, fear for caution, or hesitation for wisdom. Mental noise complicates everything. Creating mental space helps you separate genuine inner guidance from the chatter of insecurity and habit. To access clarity and wisdom, the mind must be emptied of unnecessary clutter. This doesn't mean removing all thoughts, but loosening the grip you have on them. It means letting thoughts pass instead of holding them, questioning them, or replaying them. When you allow mental noise to settle, you naturally reconnect with a deeper part of yourself that knows what to do, what matters, and what can be released. You are not your thoughts because thoughts are simply mental events, passing movements of energy within the mind that arise and disappear on their own. They do not define who you are, nor do they possess inherent truth or authority. Most thoughts come from old memories, fears, conditioning, or imagination. They appear automatically, without intention, often influenced by past experiences or learned patterns. Yet people mistakenly believe that every thought demands attention or represents reality, which causes them to identify with whatever the mind produces. When you fuse your identity with your thoughts, you start reacting emotionally to ideas that may not even be true, allowing them to shape your mood, your decisions, and your self-worth. But the moment you recognize that thoughts are independent of your true self, you gain the freedom to observe them without obeying them. Thoughts are like clouds in the sky. They drift in, take shape for a moment, and drift out. You are the sky, not the cloud. You are the witness, not the noise. When you remember this, overthinking loses its grip because you no longer feel compelled to follow every mental narrative. Many people suffer not from what happens in their lives, but from the commentary their mind creates about it. A single thought can trigger a chain reaction of worry or self-doubt, not because the thought is powerful, but because we give it importance. When you step back and see thoughts as temporary appearances, they lose their emotional charge. You begin to notice how quickly they change, how inconsistent they are, and how often they contradict one another. That inconsistency is a reminder that thoughts cannot define your identity. When you stop identifying with thoughts, you create space between yourself and the mind. That space allows you to respond rather than react. You can listen to a thought without accepting it, question a thought without fighting it, or watch a thought without becoming entangled in it. This shift from identification to observation is one of the most profound forms of liberation. It restores inner peace because you stop taking every mental whisper personally. It enhances clarity because you no longer confuse imagination with reality. It deepens self-awareness because you begin to recognize that beneath the mind's chatter is a quieter, wiser presence that experiences the thoughts but is not controlled by them. Understanding that you are not your thoughts is the foundation of inner freedom. It opens the door to peace by reminding you that mental activity does not define you, limit you, or command you. It allows you to stand in your true self, calm, aware, and untouched, while thoughts come and go on their own. Letting go creates space for inner guidance because the mind works best not when it is full, but when it is open, relaxed, and receptive. When you hold on tightly to worries, expectations, and repetitive thoughts, you crowd out the deeper intelligence within you. The mind becomes like a room packed with clutter. Even if something valuable tries to enter, there is nowhere for it to settle. Inner guidance is subtle, quiet, and gentle. It does not push or shout. It whispers, it nudges, it rises from a place deeper than logic, and it can only be heard when mental noise softens. Many people believe solutions come only from thinking harder, but often clarity appears when thinking pauses. When you loosen your grip on thoughts, you make room for insight to emerge naturally. Letting go is not about ignoring problems or escaping responsibility. It is about releasing your attachment to forced outcomes, unnecessary fears, and mental habits that keep you stuck. Overthinking tries to control everything, as if worry could prevent life from happening. But genuine inner wisdom does not come from control, it comes from trust. When you let go, even slightly, you stop trying to force answers and allow them to arise on their own timeline. In that moment, the mind opens like a window after being shut for too long, and fresh air flows in. Guidance often arrives in the form of intuition, unexpected clarity, or a sudden sense of knowing. It might come during a quiet walk, a moment of stillness, or even while doing something simple and unrelated. These moments happen because your mental grip has loosened enough for something new to enter. Holding on keeps you tense, letting go allows you to soften. When you soften, you become receptive. That receptivity connects you with your inner wisdom, which is always present but often buried beneath layers of worry and analysis. Everyone has experienced times when an answer suddenly became obvious after they stopped obsessing over it. That is the power of spaciousness. Insight cannot breathe in a mind that is trying too hard. It needs openness, patience, and trust. Letting go creates an environment where solutions can rise effortlessly instead of being squeezed out under pressure. Inner guidance is not loud, dramatic, or forceful. It is the natural clarity that emerges when you stop crowding your mind with noise. It is the calm direction that appears when you release the need to control. When you let go of mental clutter, you return to a more centered, intuitive version of yourself, one that sees more clearly, feels more deeply, and knows what truly matters. Observation is stronger than reaction because the moment you step back and simply witness a thought, You take away the power it has to influence your emotions and behavior. Reacting means you accept the thought as truth, engage with it, and allow it to shape your mood. Observing means you acknowledge the thought without becoming entangled in it. This creates a psychological distance that allows you to see the thought for what it truly is, a temporary mental event, not a command. When you practice observation, you become aware of how often the mind exaggerates, imagines, or repeats old patterns that no longer serve you. Instead of being pulled into the whirlwind of overthinking, you remain grounded and steady, watching thoughts rise and fade like waves on the surface of an ocean. Reaction is often automatic. It happens quickly, without awareness, triggered by emotional memory or habit. A single thought, "I'm not good enough. What if something goes wrong? They might judge me," can immediately stir anxiety, fear, or doubt. You feel the emotion before you even question the thought. But observation interrupts that cycle. The moment you notice a thought and say to yourself, "I am watching this thought appear," you shift from being the thinker to being the observer. The thought loses its charge because it is no longer operating unconsciously. You are shining awareness on it, and awareness dissolves its grip. When you observe rather than react, you begin to understand the nature of your thoughts. You notice how many of them repeat daily. You realize that most of the things you worry about never actually happen. You see the patterns that have been running your life without your permission. This insight gives you the power to choose a different response. You learn that you don't have to argue with your thoughts, suppress them, or fight them. You only have to watch them and they pass. The mind cannot maintain a thought when it is fully observed, because observation removes the emotional fuel that keeps it alive. Observation creates inner freedom. Reaction creates inner tension. When you observe, you remain calm, present, and aware. You reconnect with a deeper stillness beneath the mind's noise. From this stillness, you can respond with clarity instead of reacting from fear. You realize that thoughts do not define you, and emotions do not control you. You experience life from a place of insight rather than habit. Over time, observation becomes a natural way of navigating the mind. It allows you to maintain your center even when thoughts escalate or emotions rise. Through observation, you reclaim authority over your inner world, allowing thoughts to come and go without disturbing your peace. Overthinking steals presence and joy because the mind becomes so absorbed in imagined scenarios, past mistakes, and future fears that it disconnects you from the life happening right in front of you. When you are trapped in the cycle of excessive thinking, you are not truly living. You are merely analyzing. The present moment, where peace, connection, and joy naturally exist, gets overshadowed by mental noise. Instead of experiencing what is real, you begin to engage with what is hypothetical. The mind creates stories, predictions, and worries that feel urgent, but are usually irrelevant or untrue. This constant mental engagement drains emotional energy and prevents you from appreciating the simple, grounding experiences of everyday life. The warmth of sunlight, a meaningful conversation, or even your own breath. Overthinking pulls you away from these real moments and replaces them with tension, doubt, and restlessness. When you overthink, you also stop trusting life. You start believing that if you don't analyze every detail, something will go wrong. This belief creates a state of inner vigilance, a constant alertness that keeps you from relaxing into the moment. Your mind becomes so busy preparing for potential problems that it cannot enjoy what is already peaceful. Even when nothing is wrong, overthinking convinces you that something could be, which creates unnecessary worry. Joy becomes fragile because it is constantly overshadowed by what-if scenarios. Presence becomes rare because you are mentally living in a timeline that does not exist. Overthinking also makes small problems feel larger. A simple comment can become an imagined insult. A minor decision can feel like a lie, faltering choice. A moment of uncertainty can spiral into a story of failure. This mental amplification not only increases stress, but also prevents you from experiencing the natural ease that comes from trusting yourself. When you are caught in your thoughts, you lose your ability to respond authentically. Instead, you react from fear, doubt, or insecurity. This disconnects you from your true self, which is calm, capable, and present. Joy thrives in simplicity. It grows when the mind is quiet enough to notice the beauty in ordinary moments. When you stop overthinking, you begin to see life more clearly. You notice the kindness of others, the opportunities right in front of you, and the small moments of peace that were always there but overlooked. Presence allows you to experience life fully, not filtered through fear or analysis, but as it is. When you return to the present moment, you rediscover joy not as something to chase, but as something that naturally appears when the mind becomes still. Choosing peace over mental chaos is an act of reclaiming your inner authority, because it reminds you that you have the power to decide which thoughts deserve your attention and which ones can simply pass through without influencing you. The mind naturally produces noise, worries, and scattered ideas, but you do not have to follow every one of them. When you consciously choose peace, you are declaring that your well-being matters more than the mind's constant chatter. This choice is not always easy, especially when old patterns of overthinking feel automatic, but even the smallest moment of awareness, pausing, breathing, notice, and creates a shift inside you. It opens the door to calmness, clarity, and a deeper sense of control over your inner world. Mental chaos thrives when you believe every thought is urgent, meaningful, or true. But when you choose peace, you begin to see that most thoughts are just habitual echoes from the past or anxious projections into the future. They are not instructions, they are not predictions, they are just thoughts. By choosing peace, you loosen the grip these thoughts have on your emotions. You allow yourself to return to the present moment, where solutions become clearer and worries lose their power. Peace is not something you wait for. It is something you practice by refusing to feed mental noise with attention or fear. Every time you redirect your focus from chaos to calm, you strengthen this inner ability. Choosing peace also means giving yourself permission to let go of the false belief that overthinking somehow protects you. Many people hold on to mental tension because they think worrying prepares them for the worst. But worry does not prevent challenges. It only exhausts you before they even occur. Peace prepares you far better than chaos ever could, because a calm mind sees options, possibilities, and solutions more clearly. When you choose peace, you approach life from a centered place rather than from panic or confusion. You become more patient, more intuitive, and more grounded. You start to trust yourself again, instead of relying on the noise of anxious thoughts. Inner peace is not about having an empty mind, but about having a steady one. Thoughts may still come, but they no longer pull you in every direction. You observe them, acknowledge them, and let them pass without losing your center. This inner steadiness becomes a new form of strength. It allows you to navigate challenges without being overwhelmed by them. It helps you respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. Over time, choosing peace becomes a natural way of living, a quiet confidence that rises within you, reminding you that while the mind may create chaos, your true self can always choose calm.